The story begins with a single image that traveled across social media: a tomb guard, standing at attention before the eternal flame, his uniform flawless, his posture unwavering, but on the chain around his neck hung a small silver cross that glimmered in the sunlight. For most who saw it, this was a quiet, touching sign of faith, a reminder that even the most disciplined soldiers carried something personal within their hearts. But for one powerful figure in the city, this simple cross was seen as a violation. Judge Richard Halden, known for his unyielding interpretation of the law and his long record of controversial rulings, declared that a soldier representing a national monument could not display any personal symbol of religion, no matter how small or discreet. Within weeks, papers were filed in court. The lawsuit carried his name boldly: Halden vs. Tomb Guard. News outlets seized on the headline. Commentators debated day and night. Was this about upholding neutrality at a sacred site, or about punishing a soldier for quietly showing faith? Crowds gathered at the cemetery, some holding flags, others holding signs that read, "Faith has no place in uniforms." The tension grew so thick that even visitors who came simply to pay respects to fallen heroes found themselves caught in whispered arguments and heated exchanges. The tomb guard himself, Specialist Daniel Reeve, remained silent. Day after day he marched, clicked his heels, and shouldered his rifle, never responding to the storm brewing around him. To him, his duty was unchanged: to guard the tomb of the unknown soldier with honor. But to Judge Halden, this silence was defiance. And soon, the case made its way to the highest chambers of law, where history itself seemed to hold its breath. In the courtroom, the atmosphere was unlike anything the city had seen in years. Every seat was filled, reporters leaned forward with pens scratching furiously, cameras flashed as the doors opened and the tomb guard stepped inside. Daniel Reeve did not wear his ceremonial uniform that day. He wore his service blues, crisp and modest, his cross still resting over his chest like a quiet declaration. He saluted the judge respectfully before taking his seat, and the irony did not escape the watching crowd: he saluted the very man suing him. Judge Halden sat tall, his robe draped heavily, his face as cold as carved marble. He spoke slowly, carefully, insisting this case was not about faith but about law. "A national soldier cannot represent all of us," he declared, "if he displays a symbol that divides us." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The prosecution painted Daniel as reckless, ignoring strict military regulations, while the defense argued that the Constitution itself protected his freedom of belief, even when standing guard. Every witness called to the stand seemed to ignite new fire. Veterans who testified that faith gave them strength on the battlefield, historians who recounted traditions of personal tokens carried by soldiers since the Revolutionary War, and even a grieving mother who revealed that when she visited the tomb, seeing that little cross gave her comfort that her son's sacrifice had meaning. With each testimony, the courtroom swayed between outrage and compassion. But Judge Halden remained unmoved. His gaze never softened, not even when the mother's voice broke with tears. For him, this was about setting a precedent, and he was determined to win, no matter the cost. Behind closed doors, however, whispers began to surface. It turned out Judge Halden had a history not widely known. Years before, his own son had enlisted in the army and deployed overseas. The young man never returned, and though the judge rarely spoke of it, the bitterness had lingered like an unhealed wound. Some speculated that his crusade against the tomb guard was less about law and more about a personal struggle with faith itself. For Halden, the cross might have symbolized a promise broken, a God he felt had abandoned him when his son's life was cut short. Reporters began digging, finding letters, fragments of speeches, and one particularly haunting story of Halden refusing to step into a church at his son's funeral. The narrative shifted. Was this lawsuit truly about national neutrality, or was it a grieving father lashing out at a symbol he could not bear to face? Meanwhile, Daniel Reeve continued his duty, never faltering at the tomb, his boots striking the pavement with unwavering rhythm, his rifle polished, his face solemn. Tourists noticed that whenever he turned, his cross caught the sunlight just so, and people began to line up not just to see the changing of the guard, but to silently support him. Children pointed at the cross and whispered, "He's brave." Veterans saluted longer than usual. And every evening, when Reeve returned to his quarters, he found letters waiting from strangers, letters of encouragement, prayers, and even apologies for what he was enduring. He read them quietly, folded them neatly, and tucked them away. He would never let the storm shake his focus. For him, guarding the tomb was a vow that transcended even the courtroom battle looming over his life. As the trial stretched on, tensions outside the courthouse escalated. Protesters clashed daily, sometimes verbally, sometimes physically. On one side, Those demanding strict separation of religion and state shouted through megaphones, accusing the guard of disrespecting the dead with personal beliefs. On the other side, faith leaders, veterans, and ordinary citizens carried crosses and flags, chanting that no law should strip a soldier of his humanity. News anchors described it as a battle for the soul of the nation. And then came the shocking moment that no one could have predicted. During a particularly heated session, Judge Callahan demanded Daniel stand and explain why he wore the cross. For the first time, the silent soldier spoke. His voice was steady, quiet, but filled with weight. He told the story of his best friend, a fellow soldier who had been killed in Afghanistan. That friend had given him the cross, saying, "Carry this, brother, and you'll never walk alone." Daniel explained he wore it not to make a statement, not to challenge regulations, but to honor a fallen comrade and to remind himself daily of the sacrifices others had made. The courtroom fell utterly silent. Even reporters stopped writing. The words lingered like smoke in the air, heavy and undeniable. For the first time, Judge Callahan shifted in his seat. His face remained stone, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of something: pain, memory, maybe even doubt. But just when it seemed the tide might turn, the unexpected happened. An anonymous file landed on the judge's desk one evening, delivered by a clerk who claimed it had been submitted as evidence. Inside were photos of Daniel Reeve on duty, edited and altered, showing the cross enlarged, glowing unnaturally, as if he were using it as propaganda. Accompanying them was a letter accusing him of breaking other regulations, suggesting he had spoken out in uniform about religion, claims completely unfounded. Suddenly, rumors spread like wildfire. Was the guard truly innocent, or was he exploiting his role? Daniel denied everything, but the damage was done. Public opinion fractured even more sharply. The trial became not just about a cross, but about truth versus manipulation, loyalty versus betrayal. As cameras captured Daniel walking out of court that night, shoulders squared, cross gleaming faintly in the evening light, the world realized this was no longer a simple legal dispute. This was a test of character, a clash of grief and belief, and the outcome would shock the entire nation. What no one yet knew was that the person behind the forged evidence was closer to the judge than anyone suspected, and when the truth came out, it would bring the entire courtroom to its feet in stunned silence.